So let's get started. Um, as I mentioned, we're talking about social media for historic places. And I wanted to mention, because of the pandemic, how important it is social media is right now. Good engagement is always important, but especially right now. Because of the pandemic, we're all experiencing a lot of change right now. And we're also at a distance from our audience. And social media is a good way to remain top of mind, to have conversations with them, to reassure them, and to engage them with an interesting story and a heartwarming story about our historic places that they really care about. So, social media has seen record numbers during the pandemic because of this. And it's well worth your time and effort to develop a good social media strategy and to create great content to keep everybody engaged. So we'll be taking your questions during the presentation today and also at the end. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end that will have a better, larger discussion. But if there's anything that strikes you, we're happy to answer questions as they come to you. Um, so I love seeing everybody typing in where they're from. And I know a lot of these places. Vanessa and I both know them from our interactions with you through Launchpad and Historic Places Day and Passport Places. So we're going to have a great conversation today. Um, I wanted to let you know as well that the session today is being recorded. So you will get a recording of the session as well as a PDF of the slides. So you don't need to copy down any of the slides as you see them. Next slide. Let me introduce myself and then Vanessa can introduce herself. I am the Manager of Marketing and Digital Strategies here at the National Trust for Canada. And Vanessa, you're here.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Vanessa and I'm the Manager of Communications at the National Trust.
I wanted to now tell you a little bit about the National Trust before we get going in our presentation about social media. So the National Trust for Canada is a charitable not-for-profit organization that leads and inspires action for places that matter. We have a long track record working with communities and to save and renew historic places, and a team that's passionate about helping you succeed. At the National Trust, we're on a mission to bring heritage to life. So in more ways than one, and social media is one of the ways we're going to talk about it today. And we have other webinars in our schedule that we'll talk about at the end. So we provide tools to save and renew historic places like yours, and we have a treasure trove of destinations to visit with a network of places to visit and discover. You can learn more about our benefits of becoming a member on our website. We'll talk a little bit more about it at the end. And we encourage you to share on social media while we're doing this webinar. And we're sharing our social media handles there at the bottom of the screen. So let's talk about, what are we going to talk about today? Why to use social media? Great question, easy to answer. How to attract your audience, what type of content do you want to post, how to create engagement, and then at the end, we're going to talk about being able to use social media as a fundraising tool. So let's get started. I'm going to hand it over to you, Vanessa, to get us going.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so first question, we wanted to talk about why is it a good thing to use social media? I assume that if you're here today, it's because you've probably already been building a presence on social media. Maybe you're looking to expand your knowledge a little bit about it or just to learn some new skills. I can definitely understand that it can be an incredible tool to grow and connect with your audience, but I understand that there's so much to know and sometimes it can just feel really overwhelming. Or maybe you feel that you've tried really hard and you've really done your best to connect with your audience and really put a lot of content out there and you're not really seeing any results and you're getting tired of this and you're actually wondering why bother. So I'm curious to know if which one do you resonate with the most? Which one do you feel like you are? Do you feel overwhelmed and confused how to use social media? Or do you feel like you've tried so hard and you're barely seeing any results? So type 1 or 2 in the chat. Which one are you? And I would love to see how everyone is feeling. Okay, so a lot of 2s actually. That's great. Okay, awesome. So it's going to be great for you today to be talking about why maybe you've tried so hard and you feel like you're not seeing any results, and that you feel like you may have trouble connecting with your audience. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So first of all, why it's important to use social media. As Sanya mentioned before, we definitely at the start of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of increase, everyone going online and trying to do everything on social media. We've definitely seen an abundance suddenly of everyone going online because we had no choice than to do that. So it's become one of the most used tools to use to promote your services or your historic place. And why? Well, because it's easy to reach your audience from the comfort of their home. So you can reach them pretty much anytime or any place that they are in, whenever they're going to look at whenever they're going to have a look at their profile. You can use social media to share the success of the stories and the work that you do. So use it to share the back scenes of the work that you're doing, which is always something really interesting. You can use it to engage and connect with your supporters. It's also a really great tool to use for fundraising, donations, campaigns. We've seen a lot of that happen as well since the start of the pandemic. And definitely another great tool to use to drive traffic to your website and maybe to your blog or to your donation page or other things like that. It's a really good way to funnel your audience onto somewhere else that you want to bring them. And as of January 2019, there were actually 3.5 billion people that were actually using social media. And I'm sure that this number has increased since then as well, as it's definitely growing more and more into our lives since the start of the pandemic. And we're seeing this trend that is only growing, and for the future, that's really where we are heading at the moment. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is how to actually attract your audience. Because with social media, you can post as much as you want, but if you don't know how to attract the right audience for you, or just to know how to reach your audience and how to talk to them, then it's really hard to get some engagement going, because you can post 5 times a day, but if there's no one to see it, then we all know that it's not going to go far. So the first thing that I would like you to ask yourself is to really get clear on who is your audience. And I'm sure that, all of your historic places probably have sort of an avatar of who is coming to visit your site or who is interested in getting to know your site. And you probably know, is it mostly women, men? What's the age range? What's the location that they are in? And what their interests are. So once you have that avatar clear in your mind, then I feel like it's easier for you to connect to who you're actually talking to. And then once you're clear on that, you can actually tailor your messages around the ideal audience that you're actually talking to. And something important as well to know in the avatar that you're creating is that your avatar, you have to determine if it's the decision maker or if it's the influencer. And what I mean by that is that if your museum, for example, the target audience is kids, and mostly who's going to be interested in discovering the museum is going to be kids, for example. Well, the children are not necessarily going to be the decision maker, because they're not going to one that are actually going to be purchasing the tickets or coming to visit or deciding to come visit. But the kid is going to be the kids are going to be the influencers. So the type of messaging that you could be putting out on social media would be to the decision maker, because they're the ones that are going to decide if they want to go check out your site or not. And the influencers will be the children. So you could be targeting, for example, moms. That would be the decision maker, and say, are you looking for something entertaining for your children? As, for example, we were on March break last year. Are you looking for something to entertain your kids as they are on March break, and you want to give them something educational to do? Well, you can come visit and learn about history at our history place. So you would be targeting the decision maker, but using the influencer because you know that they're the ones that are actually interested in coming to your history place. And so that's something that just to be taken into consideration. Then what is your intention with your platforms when you're putting out your messages? You always want to have a call to action, whether it's to go check your website, whether it's to sign up for a membership, whether it's to come and participate, sign up for a webinar, whatever it is that you're doing, to have a call to action behind the strategy or the publications that you're putting on social media. And to also take into consideration that when your audience are looking for you, when they're maybe searching on social media or they're just scrolling, what is it that they're looking for? What is it that they're interested in? And why would they actually follow you? Which will then link to my next point. That is, why should your audience be following you? Is it because you're putting great content? Is it because your content is educational? Is it because it's fun and entertaining? So they might love the historic place that you're promoting, but if your historic place is actually not providing much content, then they wouldn't necessarily have a reason to follow you. So to get really clear on what type of value that you're providing on your social media. So I've put here, how do you provide value? Maybe it's education, maybe it's blog posts, maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's fun little behind the scenes stories that you're going to post about once in a while. So just to, take a moment to brainstorm and think about what kind of value you're providing to your audience. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is how, no matter what platform that you're using, the profile of your social media account should be extremely clear for people to know. Within the first few seconds of looking at your profile, they should know what you're about. So for example, let's take a museum again, or maybe like a historic house from someone. And if they look at your profile on Instagram and there's no clear picture of the house, it doesn't mention whose house it is, it doesn't mention a little bit about the history, it's going to be hard for the audience to know what this account is actually about. And if there's pictures of dogs and graphics about the next event coming up, but it's not clear what exactly it is about, on social media, everything is so quick that if within the first 2 seconds we don't know what your profile is about, then the likeliness of them choosing to follow you is just decreasing a lot. So you want to make sure that, first of all, that your name is really clear and that it's easy for understand, and it's not just if you shorten your name, I can see that happen sometimes. For example, the places that are national historic sites, they put NHS because it's long to have the full thing. I understand that. But to make sure that the name is very clear for us to be able to recognize it, because it might not be everyone that knows the short version of your name. And to make sure that your tagline or your bio includes some keywords that are relevant. So for us, I put an example of the National Trust here. And you can see that we have the keyword heritage, the keyword Canada, historic places, and for a vibrant and sustainable future. So you can see here what our mission is. You can see what we're about. You can see that we're going to be talking about historic places and that we're located in Canada. So just to make sure that you include some keywords in your bio, in your tagline, so that it's clear to know what you're about. And for a younger generation, emojis are also very popular. So if you wanted to include some emoji, maybe that represent your site, that could be something interesting to do as well, even if it's in your bio. And also make sure that the content reflects what you're about. So especially if you're using Instagram, for example, we all know that when you go on Instagram, when you look at your profile, you actually see a grid. So you see all the pictures that you posted last. And Instagram being a very visual platform, as again, within the first few seconds, people will decide if they want to follow you or not. So if your grid on Instagram mostly shows graphics about your next events and dogs, and it's not necessarily relevant to your historic house, for example, or your historic site, then it's going to be hard for people to actually understand that it's about a historic site, what you're promoting, or even on your Twitter, on your Facebook profile. If the last few things that you posted are not relevant to the historic site that you're working for, then it's going to be hard for them to really understand what it's about. And again, it's just confusing the audience. So to make sure that the content that you post really reflects what you're about. So if you wanted to have different pictures of the different rooms of the house, or historic artifacts, or the outside of the house, once in a while in between them, if you have graphics or if you have something else that might not be relevant, that's okay. But to make sure that most of the content really makes sense and reflects what you're about. So if you wanted to do some tests, something that would be really good is to maybe just show the profile to someone that may be partial or doesn't know the place, and say, look at this and tell me what you think, so that you can get some feedback and see if it makes sense and see if it actually feels like what you're trying to promote on your accounts. And next slide. So what type of content that you should post? We have a Facebook page. Do you recommend that we also have an Instagram page? That's a very good question. It depends on what type of audience that you're aiming for. So Facebook is going to be more of a platform that I would say parents, grandparents are going to be using. Millennials are mostly on Instagram, so the younger generation. More and more, Instagram is really growing. So I see a lot of people that are going on Instagram more and more. And especially for historic places, I find that it's very beautiful. It's very visual. And Instagram is majorly visual platform. So it can definitely be interesting. But if you're just starting out and you don't have the staff capacity to have 3 or 4 social media accounts, then I would say focus on the one that actually you think that the majority of your audience will relate to, and that's the one that you should be putting the energy in. And yeah, if you have any other questions, please feel free to send a question in the chat. So what type of content should you post? A little tip to remember is the 80-20 rule. So social media is really a great way to keep your followers informed about your organizations, your programs, and your events. But if that's all you talk about, at some point your audience is going to get tired. So 80% of your content should actually be more light content and not necessarily with a promotional mindset behind it. So either just sharing some valuable information, something light and fun, just a question to get the engagement rolling with your audience. And then only 20%, about 20% should be about advertising, upcoming events, donation appeals, and things like that. Okay. Okay. The other thing is, so keep it fresh, relevant, and timely. So for example, you want to use to your advantage if there are any holidays that are coming up, or for example, there were Halloweens, and we saw so many sites that were doing some haunted walks or haunted themes or things that are relevant to what is happening in the world right now. And for example, last year when the holidays were coming up, we did a blog article that was about inspiring getaways for the holidays, and it was a very popular article. Something about Halloween. We have the Memorial Day coming up, so try to be conscious of what is happening right now and do something that can be creative and tie into that, because people love everything that is themed around some sort of celebration. And use image and graphics more and more. There's so many things that are happening on social media, and we scroll through so fast that we most of the time don't read the posts. So having an image that will actually grab attention from people, they will look at the image first, and if there's something that they actually catch their attention, then they're going to read the post. So it's such a good practice to have, just to make sure to include some images or some short graphics with your posts so that you can actually grab people's attention. And the majority of the population are visual people, so you will want to include some nice pictures and graphics in your posts, especially if it features your beautiful historic place. And jump on the bandwagon. So if there are trends that are happening, especially if you're on Twitter, you can see on the side of Twitter, if there's a national cookie day, for example, that they are trending at the moment, you want to jump on this and use this to your advantage, because that means that it's something that is really popular right now and that people are actually looking for. So when you see that happening, I know there's World Emoji Day. There's all sorts of trends that are happening pretty much every day that you can take advantage of. And using the hashtags, something, no, I'll come back to that later. And something that is also fun to do is to just, have fun with your audience and make it entertaining for them. I see the National Trust in UK are doing some jokes. How can you tell that the sea is friendly? It waves, and it's one of their national historic sites. They have some jokes sometimes, or you can just post a behind the scenes. You can see here they had a picture of all the staff that was working, and it was actually really cold. So to create some fun and entertaining stuff like that will just bring a little bit of something lighter in the audience feed, and they actually love that kind of content. As I mentioned before, visual content is more than 40% more likely to get shared on social media than other types of content. And a really easy tool that you can use is called canva.com to create images. And this banner that we have here that we created for the conference last year was actually created in Canva, and it's super user-friendly to use. So it's totally something that you could be using if you wanted to create some graphics while you're promoting an event or a campaign that is happening. You can just create something quickly and use with your publications. Here, if you add a short video, it's also a great visual support to have, because you will have your audience attention for longer if your video is well done, for example. Although the thing with social media is that people want to be able to scroll down very fast and easily. So if your video is too long and doesn't keep their attention, then they'll keep on moving on and keep scrolling. So a couple of things that you want to make sure that you do when you do videos is to keep it focused. Pick one specific message that you want to share with your audience, and don't try to include too many things all at once. So pro tip, you would actually be better if you were to make 3 different videos that were 30 seconds each, rather than doing one video of 1.5 minutes, for example. And with Instagram and Facebook, you can now do stories. So using stories to actually do some videos is a really great way to do that. Also, something to consider is that most people will look at their social media while they're on their phone or their tablet, and they might be, most of the time, people will keep the sound of their mobile devices off. So that means that if there's sound on your video, they likely won't be hearing it. So something that you could do is to just maybe try to include subtitles if you can, or make a video that there might be some music, but the sound might not be necessary. But just to make sure that people can still have a good idea of what is going on in the video, even if there's no sound. Yeah, and then if you wanted to make a short video, then at the end you can definitely include a call to action. So have a little slide at the end that says donate today, or a link to your website, or the date to your event would be also a good practice to include a call to action at the end of your video. Okay, I see. Preferred aspirations for the various social media apps. I'm not sure I understand that question. If you can just elaborate a little bit.
It's probably about how it's different ratios for different, like Twitter is a different size than Instagram. I mean, it's nice in Canva because it gives you those ratios when you try and make something.
Yes, so Canva definitely has already pre-sized everything. If you want to make an Instagram story, if you want to make an Instagram post, a Twitter post, a Facebook banner, a Facebook event banner, all of this is already pre-sized in Canva, so you really don't have to worry about that. So that's a good tool to use. And we also included just a little bit of free resources here that you can use. So for example, if you don't know some of them, then that would be really good to check them out. Hootsuite is an amazing free resource that you can use to plan and pre-schedule everything. So for example, if you're trying to be really active on Twitter, but it can be exhausting to always be on Twitter and trying to post every day. So you can take a chunk of time in your week and then prepare everything and pre-schedule it, and then it'll just publish by itself. So you can use Hootsuite for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube even. It's a really good tool to use, and it's free to use. Canva is also free. For all of these platforms, there's obviously paid options, but you can have the basics for free. So Canva, as we mentioned before, is for graphic design. Later is another platform that I like to use for mostly Instagram, and you can use it for Facebook as well. But I personally really like to use it for Instagram because with Later, you can visually plan everything on your Instagram account. And as I mentioned before, you can plan your grid and see what your grid is going to look like. So you can see if you feel like you have too many different posts that are similar together, or that are just that are all graphics and it's not blending well on your Instagram grid, then that's definitely a good tool to use. And you can also include your hashtags and tag, like pre-tag people in your photos as well. So it's definitely a good tool for that. And last one is Bitly, which is a tool for link shortener and tracker. So if you wanted to know how many people are clicking on your link because you have a campaign or an ad going on, then Bitly is a really good one to use for that.
Vanessa, there's one more question in the Q&A that might be good to answer right now. And then she's asking about Creative Commons and other places for photos. That would be really good.
Available for free. Yeah, there's a few sites that are good to use. I know there is Unsplash. I can write it in the chat. So Unsplash and Pixels are some that I use that are mostly free. If you use Canva as well, they provide some free photos in there that you can also use. As much as possible, if you were to post about your own site, then try to use your own pictures for sure. But if you were organizing a webinar, for example, if you just wanted to have a photo of a virtual screen or a computer, then that's definitely some great resources to use.
Actually, there's another question I think maybe we should answer at the end. It's a really good question about what kind of process we have. Maybe we can start the Q&A session with that when we get there.
Okay, awesome. Yes. And I see someone ask why some people have Instagram have red circles around their profile. I believe what you're referring to when you see the little profile picture with a red circle around it, that means that they have a story. That means that they have a story that you can currently watch. I believe that's what you were referring to. Oops.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So how to create engagement. So in the next section, we're going to talk about how to use your social media tools to your advantage, because the really creating engagement is the key to just create a relationship with your audience. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to think it through, because having a social media plan is really ideal. So as Sonia mentioned, it might be something that we'll want to come back to at the end. And how would one be able to get a blue check mark? It's only the accounts that have many followers. So usually it's mostly celebrities or really bigger accounts that have, for example, I think it's over 10K followers, or like a big number like that, just to make sure that, you know, celebrities are getting verified. So if you are a smaller organization, then you cannot request to have that check mark until you get there. But it's something that is not necessary. So tips to create engagement. One of the first things that definitely you should be doing is to just reply to comments of people that are engaging with your post, and just to let them know that you actually care about them, that you actually answer to what they're sharing. And whether it's just to say, hey, thank you so much for liking our picture, or I don't know, if they ask questions, you want to answer to their questions. So replying to comments and people that are mentioning you, maybe just thanking them for mentioning you or for sharing something, using the right hashtags. So something that I see a lot on social media is, for example, if you post a picture of a door and you're going to tag hashtag door. The thing with that is that first, it's not necessarily a hashtag that people will be looking for. So the hashtags that you use on your Instagram, on your Twitter is a little bit different for the hashtags, but if we talk about specifically Instagram, the hashtags that people will actually be engaging with is the hashtags that people will be looking for. So some of them that are really popular, for example, will be the travel and explore hashtags of your region. So for example, if you're in Alberta, you may want to look for travel Alberta, explore Alberta. So everyone that is looking for things to do or things to explore in Alberta will look at these hashtags and then come across your profile. So it's not necessarily about what your picture is about, but it's more about what is your audience looking for when they find your picture, if that makes sense. And another thing as well is to just make it personal and have fun. And it's a lot more fun for people to create with a human interaction than always seeing pictures of buildings and architecture. And as much as we love that, sometimes it's really nice to have a human touch behind that. So if you wanted to go live with your staff or do a live tour, and it's something that we've done this summer with the Historic Places Day campaign, where we had our executive director that did a live tour of King's Landing, for example, and it was very popular, very well received. So something fun to do, just create some stories behind the scene, have your staff, your interns do a little hi on Instagram stories or go live on Facebook, and it's something really fun and entertaining. Content for engagement, there's a few different things that you can do that actually easily creates engagement. So crowdsourced content, I don't know if you've seen, but we've started sharing sometimes pictures that we've received from our Historic Places Day campaign that people submitted to us of places that they love and why they love them. And the National Trust shares that, and it's really fun and beautiful because it's not content that is coming from the National Trust, it's coming from our audience and people that love history places. So find a way to include your audience and share what they're sharing with you, and they'll also be happy that you're sharing what they've told you about and what they enjoy about your place. And you can do some fun quizzes. So we've seen the Driftscape app that was asking questions about some of the historic houses and getting people to vote and do some polls like that. You can do polls on Twitter, you can do them on Facebook, you can do them on Instagram stories. So there's different ways to do some fun quizzes like that. And it's super easy and fun to do. You can do some contests. So I'm sure that some of you know about our History Places Day campaign that we're running during the summer, and you know about the selfie contest. This year we had the visit list contest as well. And it's always something that creates a lot of engagement because people are talking about it, they're sharing about it. If they created their own visit list and they were sharing it on their profile, which was raising awareness for us, for our organization. So creating contests is also always something really fun to do, and it really doesn't have to be complicated. If you don't have the budget for a $250 cash prize, sometimes it can just be a free, I don't know, a couple of free pens, a free notebook from something. Like, it can be super creative. It really doesn't have to be complicated, but people, if they hear contest, they're going to be super excited no matter what the prize is most of the time. And then asking questions, just asking, what is your favorite place? What is your favorite thing about our place? What is your favorite way do to learn about history? You know, whatever it is, but just asking questions once in a while to your audience just keeps them engaged, and they really feel like they're getting a part of your account, that they're creating a relationship with you. All right, now handing it to you, Sonia.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. We wanted to finish off with fundraising. So, being able to use social media tools for your fundraising campaigns. And we've been talking about how to use social media in general, but it is another way that you can, what's very important for historic places, to gain funds. So, let's get it to the next slide. It's important to understand who your donors, members, and visitors are. It's slightly different than who your social media audience is because they're your general audience. So you're going to try ask yourself who your donors are. And a good way to start is to talk to your current donors, their demographics, what are they interested in? And it's still a really good idea to talk to them by phone, to call them, have a conversation. I mean, we used to be able to have a conversation when they walked through the door, but now it's a great time to reach out to them because you want to stay engaged with your donors at this time. The other way that you can engage them is through a survey. So surveys, we would suggest that you keep them very short, and that gives you more people who answer the questions. And then the next question, besides who are they, then you want to know which social media channels they are. So a trend that we've seen is that some of our donors are older, and so they will be more likely to be on some of the older social media channels like Facebook. And then you want to see, but you do want to do your research. Are the donors that you know on social media? What kind of social media are they using and how are they using it? What are they interested in? Who are they talking to on their social media channels? Is it just family or is it also causes? Do they use Twitter for the causes that they care about? And another way is you can do like Vanessa was talking about, you can do polls and surveys on social media. And that's a great way to find out more about the donation side of working with your audience on social media. So the next slide is that it's really important to be able to receive donations online. So Canada Helps puts out a study every year, And in 2018, they said that 60% of donors prefer to give online. In Canada, we don't deal with cash anymore, and it's really important that you can receive your donations on your website. And in 2020, Canada Helps reports that donations from mobile users grew 33% over the last year. So the number of people who are donating, and by mobile we mean phone and tablets, is rising quickly. So today, it's really important that you have a mobile-friendly website, somewhere they can go to make a donation. Next slide. So on this next slide, this is our website, and you can see that on the left is what you would see on a desktop, and on the right is what you see on your phone. And it's just a WordPress site with a responsive design. It's quite common now that a lot of the templates that you see on for WordPress sites have that kind of design, and they're not expensive to make. You should be testing though, test it on different phones and see if it's working for you. So another important tip though is that when you communicate on social media about donations, that you share the link of your donation page. You don't want them getting lost in the rest of your website. You want them to come right to the donation page and to make the donation button quite visible, and not have too much text on your donation page either, so that they get distracted and start thinking about other things. Next slide. So here we talk a little bit about the benefits of using social media as a fundraising tool. It's inexpensive. I don't know if we talked about it, but most of the channels are free. It's not free to use because it takes a lot of time and effort. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it can. So it's not free in terms of staff time, but it is free to use. And the people are out there and waiting to be communicated with, and you can communicate to them about your fundraising. We still use mailing campaigns. There's a lot of studies out there that it says it's still important to use mail, direct mail into your donors' homes, but that it supplements it, that it creates a conversation around the donations. And it's a really great way to say thank you. Here on the right is a picture of our staff and our board saying thank you. It's one of the great messages to use on social media, and we run something called Donor Love Week. And all week we say thank you for everybody who is supporting our cause. There's one last point I skipped over, is that you can find the people in your audience who really can share and echo your message. And you can also try finding social media influencers who will reach a broader audience for you and will be interested in your cause and can share about making donations to your cause. So the next slide talks a little bit how it's important to tell stories and the impact of the donations that have been made. Stories are terribly important. They're very important to engage your audience, and also they're easy to repeat. There is something that people remember and that they can share with other people. Weaving the story into the impact of your project and the donations that have made is a great way to motivate your followers and for them to share, and that other people will be motivated to give. So on the left is a social media post from First United Church in Truro, and on the right is one in Bayards, which is a place here in Ottawa, and they're talking about their Movember campaign. So you can see they shared many different pictures, and that they're all personal. It's all about what's happening right now and getting people engaged in your story. Next slide. So it's important to show what's happening in your community. On the left there, it's about Grand Theatre, showing the Bronx football team offering their time and engaging with their local historic place. It's important to show things that are going on. I think Vanessa talked about that, the pictures of things that are actually happening, to show that it's current and it's engaging. And the middle picture is about a capital campaign and the progress on construction. And then again, on the right is another picture about saying thank you and thanking supporters because we really just think it's that important. So I wanted to, next slide, I wanted to just touch a little bit, we're running out of time, I'll go really quickly, about different fundraising trends that are out there right now. Giving Tuesday, which is coming up soon, crowdfunding and peer-to-peer. So if you want to go to the next slide. Giving Tuesday is coming up. It's right after Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It's an incredible movement. You've probably heard about Giving Tuesday. Here are some stats from last year. They raised $21.9 million online in Canada because this is a worldwide campaign, and 92 million impressions. So that's quite impressive. It kicks off the season because it's the giving season around the holidays. It's the Tuesday following Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and it's a counterpresence, and it's a nice counterpresence to all the shopping messaging that you will be bombarded with. And it is quite successful, as you can see with those stats. Next slide. So I wanted to touch a little bit on some crowdfunding. You may have considered it. Here are some popular sites: Fundraiser, Kickstarter, Indiegogo. It's a place you can go where you run campaigns online. Donations are given online. They are short campaigns with a specific timeline that the organization has a very specific goal. That's how you should be using these crowdfunding sites. And it's a way that you can try and find new followers if that's something that you're interested in trying one of these crowdfunding campaigns. Last slide is about peer-to-peer. So it might sound, that might be a technical word. It can also be referred to as P2P, but it's not actually that complicated. It sounds fancy, but if you've received an email from someone asking, a friend of yours asking to donate to their kids' campaign, to their run, that's a peer-to-peer campaign. So a lot of organizations now are creating, giving people the ability to create their own page with their own fundraising goals that they share with their audience. It's a great way to run a campaign that you have an army of people going out there asking for money, helping you with your cause. So that was a quick snapshot. We're at the end of our webinar today. We already have some questions piled up. So we had some great conversations today. Maybe I'll just talk about a little bit about some of the tools we have on Regeneration Works. We have lots of tip sheets and case studies. There's 2 upcoming webinars that you can see on the slide: Canadian Heritage Funding Opportunities and 6 Steps to Telling Your Heritage Story. Yeah, sorry, Vanessa. So the next one is about membership again. And we, as a member of this webinar, you can use the code new member for a 30% discount. We actually are a member-based organization, like many of you are. And we have a national focus. We are a national voice for historic places in Canada. And historic places can definitely use everybody's help to share our message and that our places matter. The benefits the physical benefits we have of being a membership is that we have a magazine, both digital and print. You can get a discount on our conference, and then we have a host of historic places. Some of you on the line today are historic places that our members can visit for free, where you get free admission. So I think that's it. Is there another slide?
And no, the next slide is.
There we go. Questions.
Any questions?
Yeah. I think maybe one of the really great question was asked by John. I haven't noticed the newer ones, but I wanted to ask, maybe we could talk about how many heritage organizations have dedicated full-time professional staff or access to consultants who handle the social media, because it seems it can easily turn into a full-time job, and whether the executive directors probably have time for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if that's the case, that you have very few staff available or very few time available for social media, what I would say is to start with finding as I mentioned before, getting clear on who the audience is and where they hang out, and decide on the one platform that will actually serve you best, and not try to do every platform at the same time, because if you try to spread thin, then it will not benefit anyone. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram that you choose to get the most out of social media, then I would say just pick one and put all your time and energy into that specific one. And it can easily become a full-time job for sure, just for that.
There definitely it can be more than one person full-time job doing all this possible things you can do on social media. But you can start small, and then you can probably get help of a younger person who will be natural and fast at communicating on these channels. I would like to answer the question about email campaigns. And like I actually mentioned direct mail, but email is also different. It's important to continue those audiences as well. So I think we started by saying social media is a great way to have a conversation. And what you're doing is you're starting the conversation in social media and in other ways. And then you want to bring these people closer and closer. We try and use a strategy to get them on our mailing list so we can send emails to get them their addresses, so then we can send them direct mail campaigns. You want to deepen the conversation that you're having with this audience, and social media is a great way to attract new people.
Yes, I see so many great questions that are popping in. Someone asked if it's a good thing to post the same thing all over different platforms. Absolutely, and that's something that you should definitely be doing. And that avoids you trying to create different content all the time. So for example, if you were to post a great picture with, here's someone working in this room today, post it on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, absolutely. The only thing is that you might want to tweak some things here and there to adapt to the different platform that you're using. So for example, if it's a longer post and you're actually hoping to post this on both Twitter and Facebook, then Twitter obviously has a shorter character limit. So you might just have to adapt that, but you can absolutely repurpose everything for different platforms. And actually on Hootsuite, you can plan these things for across multiple platforms. So you can write the same thing and decide to post it at the same time on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you wanted to, or even LinkedIn. So it's definitely something interesting to use for that.
Vanessa, there's a great question here about connecting to your school system through social media. And I'd like to say that we've met librarians and archivists who are busy on social media and others, Twitter, some other social media channels, that you can have conversations with them that way, that it's great. Vanessa, do you have other examples?
I'm not exactly sure I understand what you mean by local school system.
So a lot of historic places have work with schools and do education programs with schools, and that maybe you can start a conversation with them through social media. I think they're present. You can find some that way. It might also be about actually connecting directly with your school, calling them up and seeing what kind of programs would be helpful for them, and also how they would like it delivered. So that's an interesting point.
Yeah, I see.
I think maybe we only have time for a few more, maybe two.
Yeah. Can we circle back to the question, content generation? Do you remember what that question was, Sonia?
There was one about whether I'm not sure, maybe you can look. There was one about whether it should be constant communication or an intense burst. And yeah, I really believe in a drip campaign. So constant communication and paced to what kind of timeline you can give it. Vanessa, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that is super important, that's a great question, with social media is that the algorithms will work on the engagement that you're getting with your audience. So if you do one intense campaign and you post 5 times or 10 times during that week, and then the following week you go dead, then it's going to be so much harder to pick up that momentum afterwards. So definitely it's better to, if you can only post once a week, if you can only post 3 times a week, then just make sure that it's something that you can maintain and stay consistent in, because the algorithm will pick up the engagement that you're going and the consistency that you're having. So to be as consistent as possible is definitely the way to go.
Ah, yes, that was a really good question from the beginning. It was about the process of content creation. It came in during the webinar, and I was like, this would be a really meaty, good question. Maybe we can end here with this question.
Yeah.
Do you regularly set aside time to meet with your subject matter expert staff at the historic sites?
So what your process is like when it comes to content generation. So okay.
We have a meeting. So Vanessa, maybe you talk about that. You meet regularly with the content experts in our organization.
Yes. So we do have communication teams within the organization that we're going to talk about it. For example, if it's content for our magazine or content for the newsletter that we're creating, we have the content experts that are part of this team, and that are the ones that are going to reach out to the different sites. Once in a while, we're definitely going to have interviews with people from the community or the actual sites that are in person. I don't know if you've seen some of the blog articles that we're generating, and it's like 5 places that are doing this. Well, most of the time we have reached out to these sites to ask for their stories or for their pictures, or just to double check that everything we're mentioning is clear and that makes sense. So, and if that was a question, then yes. And the process when it comes to content generation, if we're talking about social media, what I would do is to set some time aside, a block of time within the week, to plan the post and brainstorm the posts for the following week, for example, or the next few days, and just prepare everything in batch and then pre-schedule them. So that way it's not always thinking the morning of or on the spot trying to figure out what to post today, because that can be just really overwhelming, and in times of energy it just can definitely be harder. And then if there's something that pops up on the day of that is happening, then we'll definitely just do it on the spot as much as possible. But having pre-populated content is definitely a good way to go.
I think we've reached the end of our time. We've actually gone over it, and we still have some outstanding questions, but we will be emailing answers, and you can email us if you have any questions. I think our emails are on the website for Sonia and Vanessa, and I think you'll get them in the email following this as well. We'll make sure that our email is there so you can ask us questions. This was fabulous conversation. We're also going to copy and paste what happened in the chat, because there's always some great sources there, and nice to share with everybody.
Maybe we can just conclude on the key takeaways from this, what we talked about today. So know who your audience is and how to talk to them. Create and engage, connect and engage with your audience, consider them as friends. And just to know that social media is not where we make sales, it's where we build relationships to better offer our services. So it's really all about relationship. Using images and videos to make your content visually attractive. Increase your views by using hashtags and mentions. Use the 80-20 rule. So 20% of your content should engage and entertain, and 20% should be about marketing your organization. And you can use social media to activate your donors as well. So thank you very much for everyone that tuned in today.
Thank you. I hope we meet you in another webinar soon.
Yes, have a great rest of your day.